Hello, everyone. I'm Erez, Shachar. I founded with Boaz Dinti and Sivan Shamri Dahan about 6 years ago Qumra Capital, which is Israel's first late-stage venture fund or growth fund. And in 2012-13, we were on the road raising money for our first fund, and it was a very, very difficult fundraise. Nobody thought that Israel could build growth companies, could really build companies to real scale. And at the time, 2013, there were $200 million invested annually in late stages in Israeli companies. Today, only 5-6 years later, more than $2 billion a year are going into growth capital or late-stage investments in Israeli tech companies. And I think that we've heard a lot about the amount of dry powder out there and the amount of capital available for late-stage investments. All of it is true, and Israel is a part of this trend as well. But I think that there are more underlying trends here which are more significant in terms of how Israeli companies can actually scale and why are Israeli companies scaling to the levels they're scaling today. So start with a quick quiz. What's the commonality between these companies? Okay. And I won't put you on the spot. I'll give you the answer myself. These are all Israeli tech companies, great companies, which are approaching consumer markets. Okay, consumers, prosumers, but basically selling into the consumer market. And when you think about it, 10 years ago, nobody thought that Israel could actually build consumer companies out of here. Okay? Being far away from the market, being culturally very different from the markets we're selling to, not having the feet on the street and the US salespeople that actually know how to do this. And the business has changed dramatically. The reasons that we are seeing today consumer companies actually scaling is not because of capital available for late-stage investments. It's because the fundamentals of going to market have changed dramatically. And what has really happened? Okay? 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when you wanted to take a consumer product out to market, you needed to fight for shelf space in retail stores. You needed to invest in branding and TV campaigns. All of that has changed dramatically. Okay, the digital age has really created a new go-to-market capabilities that didn't exist before, and you can communicate directly to customers without actually being near them. So the direct-to-consumer strategies have become digital. They've become tech-enabled. And actually, data is really what's driving going to market in consumer goods companies today. So the digital funnel, customer acquisition, is actually today replacing all of the previous distribution channels that we were used to in going to consumers. So digital conversion in general is basically built on big data. It's built on AI and capabilities of analyzing big data, recognizing signals out of the noise, and these are all very Israeli technology traits, okay? And I think that one of the greatest side benefits of the early days of the gaming industry was that the gaming industry was the world specialist in digital conversion of audiences. And a lot of the capabilities that we're seeing today in fantastic Israeli consumer-facing tech companies are coming from the days of Playtech and Empire Online and 888 and so on. So this is an unintended consequence of the start of the gaming industry here in Israel. Can somebody help me with... Okay. But, sales and online conversion is one side of going to market. I think more important, or at least as important, is actually understanding the consumer needs. And one of the greatest difficulties in being far away from the market and being culturally different than the market you're selling into is actually understanding customer needs and catering to these needs. And I think here again, we've seen a big sea change in how companies understand what their customers want, okay? Historically, the big consumer companies would have marketing panels and focus groups and invest a lot in trying to talk to the customers directly and understand what they need. Today, all of that has changed dramatically as well. We understand what customers need not because they tell us what they need, but because they act on it, okay? So we know to recognize signals from the market, basically clicks, views, and so on, and translate them into what customers actually need. A good example of that are two Israeli companies, Taboola and Outbrain, which actually cater to customers what they need and what they want without actually knowing what they really need. They just analyze the data around it and provide them content. But all of this is great, and we're seeing consumer companies coming out of Israel, but still the absolute majority of companies in the Israeli market are B2B companies catering to enterprises. And here, okay. What has happened in the enterprise world is that we're seeing that direct-to-consumer strategies are actually being used today in the enterprise as well. I think that companies such as Salesforce initially, but many, many others along the way, have started selling to enterprises like we are selling to consumers, meaning talking to the employees in the enterprise, starting to deploy product into the employee base, and then going up to the IT. The model of top-down sales is really disappearing from this from the enterprise market, and we're seeing that SaaS models and open source models are actually replacing that by recognizing needs by data and catering to the enterprise directly to the employees. I'll stop here as my time is up.